Welcome to Sightseeing Japan, the podcast where we explore the land of body slams. I'm Paul Bresson.
And I'm Jason Nealing. Paul, I got a question for you. A few questions, actually. One, are you ready to rumble? And two, can you smell what The Rock is cooking? And that's basically all I know about wrestling.
Yes and yes, but I've never heard either of those lines delivered so poorly, Jason.
Poorly?
Are you ready to Are you ready to rumble? That's how you gotta say it, man.
I'm really going to be leaning heavily on you in this episode, Paul, I got to say. Just to give everybody a little bit of background, so you know where I'm coming from. I was not into wrestling at all. As a kid, I heard about Hulk Hogan and stuff. I heard the term kayfabe for the first time, maybe like 3 years ago. I was never into pro wrestling. I had to start my research here from zero, so I can't really compare Japanese pro wrestling to American pro wrestling.
Okay, fair enough. I will say I was a wrestling fan for 2-ish years in middle school, somewhere between 6th and 8th grade. I don't remember entirely. But I was pretty into it. One of my neighbors was really into it, and we'd watch together once a week and kind of go along with the story. I even went to a wrestling event, a WWE wrestling event that was in the cities.
Really? Wow.
When I was that age. I don't remember a lot of what happened, but it was pretty cool.
Okay.
So I got some background. I get it. And I was telling you the other day, too, that randomly on my YouTube Shorts feed, all these old wrestling videos have been popping up for me because all the old wrestlers I used to have podcasts now. So they're talking about the behind the scenes and stuff. So I've been kind of reminiscing and getting back into my fond memories of it.
Cool. Well, doing the research for this episode kind of felt like learning a new language. I couldn't believe how much jargon there is in wrestling. I found this massive glossary of just these weird terms. And it's why do we even need a term for that?
Are you a baby face or are you a heel?
I don't even know. You tell me. Also, there's so much information out there, even just specifically about Japanese wrestling, that it felt like drinking from a fire hose. I got the impression that people that are really into it are really, really into it. I found all these just long articles written by people who are clearly just obsessed with all the stories behind wrestling. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if there's that many people that are kind of into wrestling.
It's kind of an all or nothing sort of thing.
Seems like it.
Yeah. I found an article called A Brief History of Puroresu, and we'll get into that term shortly, but it's 20 pages long. It lists 100 influential wrestlers. I just had a hard time even distilling it down into something that would make sense on a podcast, because it feels like once you start talking about it, you got to go on for 100 hours talking about all the little details and how each person contributed to this thing.
Yeah, it can get like that. So you mentioned Puroresu.
Puroresu. That's an English loan word. You're just taking pro wrestling, saying it with a Japanese accent, and then cutting off the ling part.
Yep.
Puroresu.
Exactly.
And in many ways, pro wrestling in Japan is similar to pro wrestling in America, which is where it originated. It's very much one of those things that came from America, and Japan put its own twist on it.
Yeah, there's a lot of Americans that have wrestled in Japan, and there's a number of Japanese wrestlers currently in the highest levels of American pro wrestling right now, too. So it does translate. A wrestler from Japan can come and wrestle in America, and the moves kind of work on each other. But there are some differences too, aren't there?
Apparently. Can we start with kayfabe? I mentioned that, and that's
Sure.
a relatively new idea to me.
Okay. I will say I don't like that word.
Why?
It just doesn't seem like an English word, but it also doesn't seem like a foreign word.
Yeah, I didn't look up the etymology of that one, but it is a weird word.
Yeah.
That's Kayfabe, right?
Yep.
And this is the idea that even though pro wrestling is staged, it's presented as if it's real. And in my personal life, this is one of the things that comes to mind when I think of pro wrestling. I remember back in elementary school, kids would get in these big arguments about whether wrestling was real or not.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how does nobody know? Why is this such a big controversial thing? There are people that are like, no, this is 100% real.
My take is that everyone knows that's not real, but you have to suspend your disbelief to really be entertained by it.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, there's like the famous clips that have gone viral of like grown men like crying, like, it's real to me, type of stuff that I feel like gives kind of like a bad image to like wrestling fandom.
I don't know. It always just confused me. But so reading about wrestling in Japan, kayfabe does exist in Japan, but I did read that matches lean much more in the direction of a legitimate competition. I read that it's not as theatrical and it's treated a bit more like it's a legitimate combat sport. I saw it called less gimmicky. Although when I watched the actual videos of these matches, it's like, are you kidding me? This doesn't look real at all. That's
a
my
lot of it
impression.
looks pretty similar to me, but we'll get into styles later. I think it does depend a bit on which style of wrestling you're trying to do and who the wrestler is. Some are way better at making it look more legitimate than others are.
Okay. You know what gets me is like the one wrestler is just basically standing there waiting for the other one to put him into this complicated hold and flip him over. And it's like, why are you just standing there waiting and letting this happen to you?
Yeah.
That's what strikes me as just incredibly fake and unbelievable.
Yeah. You're not wrong. But some of those moves, man, they're so fun to watch.
Yeah. But on top of the just incredibly theatrical matches, there are also storylines involved, right? Like there's overarching plot arcs and stuff, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
And I saw that the storylines are maybe less common or less involved in Japan, but when they do happen, they happen as part of the match instead of as like skits kind of outside the match. Is that what you've noticed?
In American wrestling, there's this huge emphasis on what they call promos, which is like the wrestlers will talk a lot, sometimes even weeks before a match. They'll get on air and give their insults and kind of try to build up to the actual match itself, whereas it seems in Japan, like they have the match and the match speaks for itself. Although I do hear that they sometimes progress the story with post-match interviews, where I feel like there's a little bit less of that in American wrestling. It's more of like the lead up to the match. Another thing with the storytelling is that, all these wrestlers take on a character, and in Japan, you're that character for life. Like, you don't change characters. I wouldn't say it's frequent in America, but it's not that uncommon for a wrestler to go through 2 or 3 or even 4 different characters in their career. If something's not working or it's not resonating with the fans, they'll just re-debut as like a totally different person, basically, and no one cares. And if people like them, they like them, and then they can become popular.
Huh. Another thing I thought was really interesting that I read about is that these storylines in Japan tend to focus on the wrestler's fighting spirit, known as tokon, their perseverance, their determination. And I thought this was really interesting because this seems to me like a really prominent concept in Japanese culture as a whole.
Yes.
Like, I feel like the more you consume Japanese media of any kind, really, the more you start to notice this concept coming up again and again. Like, it almost starts to feel like propaganda, like this idea of you don't complain, you just keep on keeping on, you keep fighting, you never back down, you never give up. And I mean, I don't think that there's any like single entity pushing this idea. Like, I don't think the government is like, all right, everybody, do your best and, keep the economy going or anything. I don't think it's that really. It just seems like it's so ingrained in the culture and has been for so long that it just pops up in everything. Like, you could even trace this idea back to Zen Buddhist philosophy. There's this term, gaman, which refers to enduring hardship with dignity. And you just see it everywhere. Like, heroes in Japanese history, in modern media, they're admired for this quality. Like, Paul, how many anime can you think of where the hero is like laying on the ground, they're like dead. You think they're dead, but they just refuse to give up, and they just keep getting up, no matter how bloody they are.
Like every single anime with fighting ever.
Yeah, exactly. Or you could tie this back to samurai culture too, or at least the idealized version of samurai with, courage and honor and all this.
I'd maybe tie it to the collectivist society too, where like you can't let people down. Like, no matter how tough it gets, you just got to persevere and keep going because you have to do what you're supposed to do no matter what.
Yeah.
To go along with the perseverance idea in the storylines, Japanese wrestling matches are actually longer on average. It seems to be not unusual for the main event to go up to an hour even. And even the matches before that being, 15-minute matches, whereas a 2-hour event in America might be, 5-minute match, 5-minute match, 5-minute match, maybe a couple 10-minute matches, and then a 20 or 30-minute headliner. And that's your thing. So they have these long matches where the guy's just getting beat and beat and beat and beat and then maybe wins at the end. There's a huge emphasis on good guys versus bad guys. And that goes for wrestling in both countries. But that's like always the storyline because it gets the crowd into it. You got to have somebody to root for and you got to have somebody to root against.
What makes the bad guys bad?
They will just do bad things.
What is a bad thing?
Like they might cheat. They might use an illegal weapon or hit him with a chair when the referee's not looking. I am more familiar with American wrestling. They would, in a lot of the promos and stuff, they would do crazy stuff. Like they might run over somebody with a car or something,
Wow.
Or they might work for the big bad boss who runs the company and the other guy's fighting against the machine type of storyline stuff.
Okay. Cool. Another thing I found interesting is that related to the idea that it's supposed to be a bit more realistic in Japan, there's apparently much more crossover between pro wrestling and MMA in Japan than there is here.
Yes. So I wanted to bring up just one wrestler because I love her so much. Her name is Mizuki. And she does these crazy moves that just blow my mind. She does this 2-foot stomp where she jumps off the top row and lands on somebody's chest with both of her feet. And I've never seen anything like that before. And then she does one called Whirling Candy that blows my mind, but I can't even describe it. If you're interested, just go to YouTube and type Whirling Candy and it'll pop right up. It's a crazy move. She's so fun to watch. She's currently I love the title belts that they have in all these organizations. She is the Princess of Princess Champion right now. That's her title belt.
That's cool. Is she really muscly? Does she look like
No,
does she look like a princess, or
actually-
does she look like she could beat you up?
Actually, she does look like a princess. She's really thin and she wears like frilly costumes.
Okay.
She's kind of going for like the cute look, but she also beats people up.
Actually, now that I'm thinking princess, I think it would be cool to have a female wrestler dressed exactly like Princess Peach, and she's just like clobbering people. That'd be great.
I was always a Daisy fan myself, but
Oh yeah,
I get what you're going there.
yeah. I don't know. Peach, it just feels like the original femininity to me. I don't know. We don't need to go on a tangent about this, but when did Daisy even show up? I feel like she's not quite as like just all out cutesy pink frilly stuff as Peach.
Maybe.
I feel like maybe she came
I
around
don't
a little
know
later.
the full history there.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. Last thing I had for the intro was just one other thing I wanted to mention because it's going to come up a bunch in this episode. Back to how there are all these different terms that show up in wrestling. Professional wrestling organizations are known as promotions.
Yes.
So like in the US, we have WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment, and AEW, All Elite Wrestling. Are those the two biggest ones, Paul?
As far as I'm aware, yeah.
Okay. Those are known as promotions. Japan has NJPW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and AJPW, All Japan Pro Wrestling. Some of the biggest ones, but I mean, in both countries, there are a bunch of these things, right?
Yeah.
And they're all just companies that run wrestling events. They manage certain wrestlers. They have contracts with. They produce all this content, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I know what I'm talking about. I got all these notes. Well, Paul, like I said, I saw hundreds of pages that just went incredibly in depth about the history of pro wrestling, but I'm hoping that our notes of like a brief overview more or less line up.
Okay, yeah, I really tried to synthesize it down here. without just naming this promotion stopped and then ended and then a new one popped up. Like, that's too much.
Okay.
I try to go with the overarching themes and popularity type stuff.
Cool. Well, let me start with a couple sentences about the very origins. Wrestling, one of the oldest sports in the world, of course, and it sprang up all over the world. There are different styles and traditions, but at its core, the idea is that people would grapple for control without weapons. That's wrestling at its most basic form, right?
Yeah.
And that happened all over the place.
Yeah.
Of course, in Japan specifically, they have a long history of sumo wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
You can check out episode 11 if you want to hear more about that specifically. So, Paul, as for modern professional wrestling, I read that it has its roots in a style called catch wrestling.
Okay. I did not.
Not
I was
familiar with
looking
that?
very specifically at Japanese wrestling history on my notes.
Well, as I said, Japanese pro wrestling has its roots in Western pro wrestling. So I was just going to dip into that a little bit.
Sure.
So catch wrestling, it's an English style of wrestling with very few restrictions. It became known in the U.S. as catch can. Have you heard that term?
No.
Me either. I thought it was kind of a fun one. Catch as catch can. In the 1800s, it was popularized by traveling carnivals. That's one of my favorite facts from this episode, too. So, like, you know what these are like, right? A carnival shows up at your town and they set up all these rides and games, throwing darts at balloons and whatever. Back in the day, these carnivals would have a strong man and they would challenge locals to try to beat their strong man. Kind of wish they still did that. That'd be hilarious to watch, but can you imagine the liability?
Yeah, it probably couldn't happen today.
Yeah. First Japanese person involved in catch wrestling was a former sumo wrestler named Matsuda Sorakichi. You got him in your notes, Paul?
Yeah.
He came to the U.S. to wrestle in the late 1800s, and in 1887 he tried to bring it back to Japan, setting up matches in Ginza, Tokyo, but it apparently failed to attract crowds.
Yeah, but still got the historical note that he was the first to perform a wrestling match in Japan.
Yep, his name is out there. Another little fun fact about catch as catch can wrestling. By 1904, that actually appeared at the Summer Olympics held in St. Louis, Missouri.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So it wasn't always fake. But by the 1920s, public interest in catch wrestling had started to wane. So this is when matches started to get more theatrical, more choreographed, predetermined, a bit closer to modern American pro wrestling. In Japan, there were efforts to popularize pro wrestling before and after World War II, but it didn't really get big until 1951 with the appearance of a legendary wrestler named
Rikidozan.
Considered the father of Japanese pro wrestling, apparently.
Yeah. I guess his big shtick was, so nearly after the war with the American occupation and everything, there was some anti-American sentiment going around. So he would get in the ring and fight against American wrestlers and beat them up with his karate chop was his big move. So people would just love seeing the big Japanese guy tossing around the foreigners.
Yeah, I saw that mentioned as a big reason that he was so successful was that Japan just needed a national hero after their defeat in World War II. Also, his timing was kind of perfect because TV was really booming in popularity. That really helped get wrestling out there to the masses. Oh, by the way, back to the national hero thing, just a little fun fact. I thought it was ironic that he was actually Korean born.
Okay.
He wasn't Japanese.
Okay.
But he tried to hide that for his whole career due to fear of discrimination. Very valid fear.
Was he like actually Korean or a Korean-born Japanese?
He was born in Korea. Yeah, my understanding is ethnically Korean. But
okay.
So Rikidozan, he basically set up the whole industry in Japan. In 1953, he established the country's first promotion, the Japanese Wrestling Association, JWA, and he modeled it after American promotions.
Yeah, it's got so popular that it was almost competing with baseball and sumo kind of on that level of like national popularity at the time.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else about Rikidozan?
No.
Okay, I just started reading about him and found out how he died, and I thought that it's not necessarily a huge part of like the story of pro wrestling. I just thought it was an interesting little footnote.
You don't need to justify yourself. Hit us with a cool fact.
Okay. So Riki Dozan died in 1963 after being stabbed by a Yakuza in a nightclub.
Jeez.
Yeah. And I found kind of differing accounts. It's not entirely clear whether this was just a random bar fight. Like I saw one thing say that he stepped on a Yakuza's foot and it just escalated into this thing where he got stabbed. But I found another source that said maybe this was actually related to Yakuza business, because there is kind of this link between pro wrestling and the Yakuza going way back, and we'll talk more about that. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was, related to Yakuza stuff, because they do tend to worm their way into all parts of the entertainment industry, right?
Yeah, he might have been resisting and they didn't like that.
Who knows? Anyway, after his death, the pro wrestling scene really exploded in Japan, with several promotions popping up that leaned towards particular styles of wrestling, right?
Yeah. In the 1970s, there was a wrestler named Antonio Inoki, where I wonder where he got that name, but he helped raise interest in the sport. He actually had a mixed skills fight with Muhammad Ali. I remember seeing clips of like Ali in the ring with the Japanese wrestler, and this is where that comes from. But he did all sorts of these kind of intersport kind of wrestling, but not really wrestling, semi-fighting stuff that he did with he did judo champions and things like that to raise the popularity and attract attention too.
I read that he was really focused on trying to legitimize pro wrestling as a sport too, and that really drove a lot of the interdisciplinary stuff that he did, like fighting Muhammad Ali and integrating all of these actual like martial art styles and stuff.
Yes, that was definitely his style, to use the martial arts moves and all that sort of thing.
And Antonio Inoki, along with another very famous wrestler of the time, Giant Baba, they were both proteges of Riki Dozan. They originally worked for his promotion, and then after he died, they both went and founded their own promotions, right?
Yeah. And Giant Baba was really famous for having connections with American wrestling companies. He was constantly bringing over top American talent to fight with. That was kind of his shtick.
Yeah, from really the very beginning, there was quite a bit of crossover between Japan and the U.S. There were multiple promotions that would have agreements and like formal affiliations with their international counterparts. And so that's kind of the beginning. And this is the part where I feel like we need to gloss over a ton of names and specific really famous matches, because it just gets insane, like the amount of information out there. But if you want to go do your own independent research, there is plenty to dig into. Can we address women's wrestling, Paul?
Sure.
I was a little surprised to learn that women were involved in wrestling pretty much from the very beginning as well.
Yeah.
The All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling Association was established in 1955, but it really took off in 1967 when the Japan Women's Pro Wrestling Association was established. And I know it sounds like I just said the same thing twice, but this is another thing I noticed in wrestling, is that all these promotions have like extremely similar names.
Yeah. JPLW, LWPJ. It gets crazy.
Yeah. Later, women's wrestling really boomed in the 1980s and 90s, and in some parts of Japan, I read that it even temporarily surpassed men's wrestling in popularity.
Yeah.
With people like Paul here that just wanted to see girls in little tiny shorts jiggling around as they throw each other all over the ring,
When
right?
did I ever say that?
I'm just using what I know about you as a person to fill in the gaps here.
I appreciated good wrestling. Some of the women were unbelievable, and some of them weren't so great. It depended on how good of a match you could give me. But also in the 1990s, they were able to draw massive crowds. They started hosting shows at places like the Tokyo Dome, where you could seat 50,000 people, and they were selling these places out. So some people call the early 90s the peak, but it's also kind of the time where the popularity started to slip a little bit too, in that mid to late 90s. It became harder to get the top American wrestlers to come over because everything was switching to television in America, and they had these contracts where they had to appear so many weeks on TV. So Japanese wrestling actually had to kind of switch to more Japanese on Japanese fights. They had to build their own storylines with their own bad guys and move a little bit away from just bringing in foreigners all the time.
So overall, I get the impression, Paul, that pro wrestling is no longer at its peak these days, right?
Yeah.
Things like MMA have really started taking over some of their audience.
Yeah.
But pro wrestling is still popular.
Yep.
And would you say it's accurate to say, since as I mentioned, there's a lot more crossover between pro wrestling and MMA in Japan, is it fair to say that these days a lot of men's wrestling goes more in that direction, while the women pro wrestlers tend to stick more to like maybe traditional Japanese pro wrestling?
Yeah, I think you could probably say that. But like we said earlier, it varies with every promotion kind of has certain things that they're geared towards.
I guess I thought that was kind of cool that they each kind of have their own thing.
Yeah.
They try to differentiate themselves in different ways, whether it's picking a different style or using a certain type of theatrical style even in their matches.
Did you see that, of course, because it's Japan, some of the women wrestling promotions like make the female wrestlers also be idols? Like some of them have formed groups and released music and they do performances, but they also wrestle.
I did hear about that, and that sounds pretty interesting. I would watch that. What just popped into my head, I don't know if anyone's done this, but I would definitely watch this. What if you had a promotion where all the wrestlers were mascots?
Oh, dude, you're on to something there.
Should we start that?
Masco Puroresu.
I would watch Cheeton beat up people all day long.
I mean, that's kind of his thing, right?
Cheeton's not a he.
That's kind of their thing, right?
Kind of. Except usually it's more self-destructive.
True.
Anyway, got anything else for history?
Nope.
All right. I just want to mention again, if you want to really dig into it, if this stuff is interesting to you, you can do that. And I'll recommend an incredibly detailed article I came across called The History of Pro-Res by the Stars. It was written by someone known as Super Mastodon on the Mastodon Wrestling blog. Did you come across that? It's like, I mean, you could just bookmark that on your phone and spend like a month reading through that thing.
Probably. A lot of what I got was from like blogs of super fans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People really get into it. It's amazing.
That's great, but I'd also say just look up Mizuki clips on YouTube.
If you just want to watch, you can watch, you can read about it, you can do all that. You could look up books. I found a bunch of books out there too. Paul, should we talk a little more about how this stuff works? What does a match look like? How do these promotions do their thing?
Sure.
Are there rules?
Sure. The rules do vary a little bit by promotion, but there are some more standard rules. It seems to be pretty common in Japan that no closed fist hits are allowed, so it's more like big slaps and chops.
Sorry, Paul, can we back up and
Yeah, well, you're right. Let's back
even
up. Like, have we even mentioned that this happens in a ring?
No.
A square ring that's raised up off the ground, and there's kind of elastic ropes surrounding it so that wrestlers can bounce themselves off the rope and come flying back and do cool moves on each other, or they can climb up on top of the ropes and jump off and do acrobatic things.
And as you're probably aware, a square, like the shape of this ring, has corners, 4 of them normally.
Yep.
And matches can happen between 2 or more sides or corners.
Yeah.
So in each corner, you might have 1 wrestler, but there are also tag matches where each corner has 2 wrestlers tagging in and out, or maybe even more, right?
Yep.
And when you're talking about like specific rules of how things happen inside of this ring, when I hear ring, I feel like circle. Circle comes to mind. Square should be called something else. I don't know, just a random thought.
Maybe. I feel like it comes from boxing because it's the same terminology.
I know,
and it
but
looks
ring,
a lot like a boxing ring.
The ring that people wear on their finger, that's not a square.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just want to point out, with all these different pro wrestling promotions, there isn't like a single governing authority that kind of sets standard rules for all of them. They all kind of are doing their own thing, but there's just kind of a standard way that they've all agreed upon that things go, more or less, right?
Yeah.
So what happens in the ring?
Well, the bell rings starting the match, and the wrestlers start fighting. There's all sorts of common moves that I'm not really going to go into describe, but they throw each other around, they hit each other, they slap each other, they jump on each other. Weapons do get used, though they're not supposed to be used, but sometimes the referee might look the other way, or they might just give a guy a warning if he uses a weapon.
Do people beat up the referee and then they can do whatever they want?
I've seen that before, yes.
So I have some notes about how you win a match.
Yeah, there's a few different ways to win a match, right?
Apparently. I read that the most common way is called a pinfall.
Yes.
Which is where you pin your opponent's shoulders to the mat for a 3 count.
Yep.
And it's the referee that's counting that.
Yes.
But you can also win if your opponent submits, either by tapping out or verbally giving up. And that might happen if they're trapped in a hold that they have no hope of getting out of.
Did you read about a rope break?
No.
So one nuance is if they've got you in some sort of submission hold, if you can reach the rope and grab it with your hand, they have to stop the hold.
Wow.
So it brings a lot of drama to it. Like a guy's just getting crushed with a hold and they're screaming and they're reaching and, and then finally, eventually they're able to grasp the rope before they have to submit.
Interesting.
Another way a match could end is a count out, where if you leave the ring, the referee will start counting, and depending on the rules, it's usually 10 or 20 seconds. If you're unable to get back in the ring, the match will end.
I heard that in Japan, it's usually a 20 count, whereas in the United States, it's normally a 10 count.
Sure.
And maybe that can add a little bit more excitement, because with extra time that you can spend outside of the ring, maybe more fighting can happen out closer to the crowd, right?
Right. But there's all different types of matches, too. There's some where you are allowed to go outside the ring and there are no countouts.
I heard a match can also end if the referee decides that a wrestler cannot safely continue. And this can tie into that idea of the fighting spirit, the toe cone that we talked about. Like maybe a wrestler wants to keep going and they just won't stay down, but the ref is like, dude, you're like missing an ear. Your eyeball is hanging out of your socket. Maybe it's time to just end this.
Yeah. There can also be referee disqualifications, generally for breaking rules or using an illegal weapon sort of thing. Although I hear that's very rare in Japan. The fans don't like it. It's not a satisfying ending for just to end on a technicality. So I've heard it's more likely for, in Japan, if they're using an illegal weapon or something, the referee just won't count the pinfall if you just hit him with a weapon or something. I'll just wait for him to get up. Instead of disqualifying and ending the match, they kind of bend the rules like that to make it more exciting.
Yeah, I heard that disqualifications don't happen as often in Japan. They do happen, but they're rare. You mentioned earlier the closed hand strikes. You can't punch somebody. You can slap them as much as you want, right?
Yep. Slap, chop, kick, but no punch.
Outside interference might end the match.
Yeah.
If you don't listen to the referee, like if he tells you to release a hold and you don't, you might be disqualified. I was also a little surprised to learn that it's possible in Japan that no one wins. Like a lot of matches have time limits, and it's apparently very common for the clock to run out, making it a draw.
Interesting.
Does that happen in the U.S.?
Not really, no.
I wouldn't imagine.
No, there's got to be a winner or a loser.
Wasn't there also, in baseball, couldn't you have a draw in Japan?
Yeah. It's something about when the last train runs, like they won't start an inning within a certain time of the last train going. Not acceptable here. We base our whole lives on winning and losing. We need a decisive victory.
Yep.
I mean, I think those are kind of the main rules, but it's a show, right? They can do whatever they want. But that's kind of generally how it goes.
That is really a driving force behind it, right? Is put on an entertaining show, whatever that means.
Yes. So you want to briefly talk about some of the promotions in Japan, Jason?
Yeah, I got a list of some of the biggest ones in the country.
And yeah, so we'll talk about a few here, but I think like we mentioned earlier, there is all sorts of regional ones that just do certain areas. There's amateur ones. In the US, we call it backyard wrestling, where people literally would set up a ring in their backyard and sell tickets, and like 30 people would show up and they just beat the crap out of each other and release a tape on VHS back in the day or something.
Human beings, man.
Yeah.
Interesting creatures.
Imagine like showing back up to work on Monday and you just got like stitches everywhere and stuff. Like, oh, just wrestling over the weekend.
So start with NJPW. Sound good?
Yeah.
That's New Japan Pro Wrestling. It is currently the top promotion in Puroresu. It was founded in 1972 by Antonio Inoki. We mentioned him in the history section. He was originally with Rikidozan's JWA. Each year on January 4th, NJPW has a big show in the Tokyo Dome. It's the biggest event in Japanese pro wrestling. You could compare it to WrestleMania in the US, or I saw it called like the Super Bowl of pro wrestling.
Yeah.
But they also have different tournaments and matches throughout the year, too.
Yeah, they've got a number of different divisions with various titles in each division. So I think they kind of do different shows across the country, kind of a similar way that like WWE does in America. And they incorporate many different styles. I don't think there's like a major style that they necessarily focus on.
AJPW is All Japan Pro Wrestling that was also founded the same year in 1972. This one by Giant Baba, that other protege of Rikidozan's. I hear that this promotion has lost some support since Giant Baba died in 1999, but it's still a really big one.
Yeah, it's still considered one of the main rivals. One interesting note is I saw that there's a lot of crossover between these two promotions, which I think has happened in America, but is less common. Like a wrestler from AJPW might go to an NJPW show and fight one of their wrestlers and kind of vice versa. Also, they sign each other's talent, kind of goes back and forth. It's a nice rivalry thing. Another one is Pro Wrestling Noah, which I heard described as a little bit more modern. It was founded in 2000, and they use a mixed style as well, but a little bit more modern moves and different types of matches that are a little more creative.
Okay. So Noah is Noah, like the Bible guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was founded by Mitsuhara Misawa, who actually resigned from AJPW and brought a bunch of wrestlers with him. It was kind of a mass exodus. And apparently that's where that name came from, the Noah.
Noah's Ark?
Yeah, they were thinking the Bible story about the flood. I guess Misawa had a certain vision of what he thought Puroresu was supposed to be, and he brought all these people onto his ark. He wanted to start over with his team of people that were faithful to him. I don't know. I thought it was interesting, like the way that all these promotions kind of splinter into more promotions did actually remind me of the way that like religious sects split off. You know, it's like somebody has an idea of like, no, you guys are all doing it wrong. This is the way we should be doing it. And then they take their followers and start a new thing.
Yeah. Their little own cult of personality to bring all their followers with them.
Kind of. I also heard that Noah was financed by loan sharks and nearly collapsed at one point due to Yakuza loans. As we mentioned, there have always been ties in some way or another between the pro wrestling industry and the Yakuza.
Yeah. Another big one is DDT, which stands for Dramatic Dream Team. It's another newer promotion. They seem to be a little bit more of like the pushing boundaries, less of the traditional wrestling, more new wild stuff. They do parodies of WWE, apparently, which I think sounds really funny. I would love to see them like watch a WWE storyline and then like do a spoof of it in a Japanese way.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard that they do a lot of comedy skits, which I think sounds fun. I also saw that they have set up matches just in weird places. Like they've had matches on the Shinkansen, the bullet train, or in buses or at temples or in a zoo.
Yeah, that sounds really cool too.
Yeah. I wonder how they pulled that off at a temple. I feel like the temple wouldn't necessarily be happy about that. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure they paid him.
Well, sure, but
There's enough temples around. Someone would say yes. Someone's a fan.
I guess.
Another one is Joshi, which is a women's promotion.
Well, Joshi on its own isn't a promotion. Joshi is like a category. Joshi just means women's pro wrestling.
Is it Joshi Tokyo then? That's like the famous women's one? Because I saw a lot of people say like Joshi Tokyo.
I heard that the biggest Joshi promotion is called Stardom.
Oh, okay.
They started in 2010, and that's actually the sister promotion of NJPW, one of the biggest male promotions.
Okay.
And in Stardom, there's a lot of emphasis on the physical attractiveness of the wrestlers, which isn't particularly surprising. And they employ a lot of former bikini models.
Yeah, okay.
And Paul, you mentioned like J-pop idol wrestling crossover. I think this is where that came from.
Okay.
They actually have idol performances as part of their wrestling shows, apparently. But yeah, that's another difference between Japanese pro wrestling and American, right? Is that in Japan, a promotion is pretty much either male wrestlers or female wrestlers. And they're kind of separate.
To be more segregated.
But in the US, the big companies will do both male and female wrestlers, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure where to mention this, Paul, so maybe this is a good place for it. I wanted to mention Korakuen Hall in Tokyo. Did you hear much about that in relation to wrestling?
I heard it was like one of the famous places to go watch a wrestling match.
I hear it's considered sacred ground for Puroresu. Like, remember in the baseball episode,
Koshien?
Koshien. Everybody wants to play at Koshien.
Been there.
In Puroresu, it's Korakuen, is where everybody wants to perform.
Okay.
It's a stadium that opened in 1962, and they host all sorts of sports events like wrestling, boxing, and other martial arts.
Nice.
So if you're in Tokyo, check out what's happening at Korakuen. Maybe you can go see a match. And we got tips later on about how you can attend one of these types of things if you want.
All right, Jason, let's talk about some of the styles of wrestling in Japan.
Okay.
One of the more traditional styles is called strong style.
As opposed to weak style. I want to see what that looks like.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Weak style isn't a thing.
I actually think it's a pretty apt name because it's a really physical style. It's hard hitting. It's the big wind up and the smack you get when you slam your hand against them. It's just supposed to be hard hitting submission holds that look really painful. It's just supposed to, I think, appear more like real fighting, pain and strength being showed off.
I heard this was developed by Antonio Inoki, that guy that started whatever that one promotion was, where he was trying to like make it look more legitimate. He was the guy that fought Muhammad Ali in 1976, and he incorporated all these different martial arts styles. So kind of makes sense that he would be the guy to develop this strong style. Also, just a side fact, that Muhammad Ali match, I heard that was watched by 1.4 billion people. That seems insane to me.
Muhammad Ali,
I mean, he was huge.
he was like Michael Jackson. He was the most famous people ever.
Man,
In the modern
1.4
world,
billion.
I don't even know if we have people that famous anymore.
Yeah.
Another style is called King's Road, which
Seems
is
like
a very
weird name.
interesting name, right?
Yeah.
But the style is known for kind of creating psychological tension. The matches are really long and kind of build up slowly to these epic conclusions after the wrestlers have just endured an insane amount of punishment.
Sounds
Sounds like pro
fun to
wrestling.
watch.
You know, yeah, it would be fun.
I heard this is the main style used in the 1990s and early 2000s, but it's not seen as much these days. This apparently also has its roots in American Southern style wrestling.
Oh, okay.
There were Japanese wrestlers that trained in America and then brought King's Road style back to Japan in the 1980s.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. Another style is known as shoot style. And this is another little wrestling term that I had not heard about before, shoot. So shoot style dates back to the 70s. It's the most realistic style. The term shoot in wrestling means anything that's unplanned or unscripted. And this actually goes back to the traveling carnival stuff, Paul, if you can believe it.
Oh, yeah?
That term shoot came from carny culture. It refers to straight shooting, which is when you're using a gun that doesn't have its sights misaligned.
Okay.
Like the carnival game where you're trying to shoot a gun at your prize to win it, they would misalign the sights so that you're not shooting where you think you're shooting.
Yeah.
But when you're using the good gun that actually goes straight, that's where shoot comes from. And that's why it means doing it for real.
Okay. So a bit more physical then?
Yeah, I heard that this looks more like MMA.
Yeah, they're kind of trying to use some of those martial arts techniques.
And they're trying to be as realistic as possible, I guess. It's
okay.
supposedly developed from the strong style, so you see a lot of that same martial arts stuff.
Okay. Another cool one is Puroresu, which is the Japanese adaptation of Mexican-style wrestling.
Yeah, in Mexico, their wrestling tradition is called lucha libre, right?
Yeah.
And if you stick that together with Puroresu, that's where you get luchares.
Yeah. And they wear the masks like the Mexican wrestlers do, and it's very acrobatic and high-flying. They're jumping off the top rope, wrapping their legs around a guy's head and flipping around him and throwing him over, just doing these crazy jumps and stuff.
That's the term I kept seeing for this one, high-flying.
Yeah.
There's like high-flying maneuvers.
Yeah, yeah. It was always kind of fun. When I was watching wrestling, there was all these little Mexican guys that would fight these like massive American dudes, but they'd be just like doing these insane jumps and flips and stuff. It was really fun to kind of watch the two different styles fight each other.
Cool.
Very athletic and agility focused, right?
Sounds like it.
You ever seen a death match, Jason? I'd never
Only
heard
in
of this.
video games.
I'd never heard of this one before.
Really?
Yeah.
Apparently this was inspired by American wrestling too. This goes back to hardcore matches in Memphis, Tennessee in the 1970s and 80s. It sounds pretty cool. Like they're focused on these extreme gimmicks that just ratchet up the tension, like having electrified barbed wire around the ring instead of normal ropes. And I heard that like when people touch them, pyrotechnics go off. Like it's just
That's crazy.
totally over the
I'd
top.
heard of hardcore wrestling. That's like a lot of blood, like heavy beating and razor blades or thumbtacks. They used to use thumbtacks a lot. Like they throw 1,000 down and throw a guy on top of it.
Yikes.
Just crazy stuff like that.
Hmm.
Fluorescent light bulbs.
Oh,
Always, breaking one over a guy's head and
that doesn't sound healthy at all.
blood coming everywhere. No, it's stupid.
You seen like the dust that's inside those light bulbs? I don't think you're supposed to inhale that.
I don't think those guys care.
Since you mentioned razor blades, can I touch on that for a second?
Yeah.
Because that's another term that I learned about in this research. There's something called blading, and this isn't common in Japan.
right.
It's more of an American wrestling thing. But people will actually, like wrestlers will cut themselves on their scalp because the scalp apparently bleeds a lot, but also heals really quickly, and it just makes it look way more dramatic when there's a bunch of blood streaming down your face.
Yep. They're slick with it too.
Where do they hide these blades?
They must either like have them in their trunks or have them hidden in a corner, like in the padding of a corner. Because I feel like often what I'd see is like after a move, the hurt guy would kind of like stumble into the corner. And then the guy that did the move would like celebrate in the ring to draw your attention. And then the other guy would come back and they would do a move on them and then he's bleeding everywhere.
Huh.
So he must have cut himself somewhere when he was like leaned over in the corner or something.
Yeah.
But I think those are the main styles used in Japan, but there's all sorts of crossover and new stuff coming along.
Yeah. Once in a while, depending on the source, I saw Joshi listed as a style, but then I saw other places that specifically said, like, Joshi is not a style, it's a category, and it just means women's wrestling, and all the women's wrestling can use the same styles as the men's wrestling. You know?
Sure.
Paul, I gotta say, I was a little surprised at how little I found trying to find, like, controversy in the pro wrestling world. Like most of the controversy I found is like, oh, this wrestler had a beef with this wrestler, that type of stuff.
Yeah. It took me a while too, but I did find some stuff.
Okay. Maybe we start with the most obvious, which is that it's dangerous for the wrestlers.
Yes, wrestler safety is definitely a concern that's been brought up. So these guys just take beatings for years and years and years, right? And it's definitely not good for your health.
I read especially Kings Road style is known for like suplexes and stuff where people are getting dropped on their heads.
Yeah.
I mean, I was seeing videos of people just getting smashed into the floor on their head or the back of their neck. And it's like, how do more people not snap their necks and die in the ring?
I mean, they practice a lot and there's techniques to it, but there's wrestlers that are known for and take pride in like never hurting a guy. And then there are other wrestlers that just hurt guys all the time because they're not.
Why would you wrestle somebody like that?
Because it's your job, you know?
Yes.
But there have been a couple wrestlers that have died from wrestling injuries. There was a female wrestler in 1997 and a male wrestler, actually a really famous wrestler, Mitsuhara Misawa, died in 2009 after a match.
I heard about a young wrestler who died in training. Wasn't even in a match.
I believe it. The male wrestler that died in 2009, to add to the controversy here, the other wrestlers, this was in the Noah wrestling promotion, the other wrestlers were informed after the event that he had passed away, but they were also informed that the next show couldn't be canceled because of the financial position of the company. So they just kept wrestling, and most of the wrestlers weren't able to attend his funeral because they all had to go to shows because of their contracts.
Heartless.
Yeah, that's tough, man. I've got one controversy that's not real. That's over. Did you hear about the retire by 26 rule?
No.
So back in the day, in like the 70s through the 90s, the top women's wrestling promotion had a rule where you had to retire by 26 because they thought the younger women would keep the attention of like the younger male audience.
Yeah, who wants to watch Christmas cakes wrestling, right, Paul?
What did you just, Christmas cakes? Is that what you said?
Christmas cakes.
What is, well, I'm not getting the reference here.
In Japan, women over the age of 25 are Christmas cakes because who wants a Christmas cake after December 25th?
Okay, I somehow hadn't heard that. Okay. One of the issues with this was like a lot of them were like just hitting their peak superstardom and then they were forced to retire, right? And they were building this career and then it's like, nope, you're done. But it's, again, very similar to the idol industry, right?
Totally.
Do you have any controversies?
Well, I was just going to mention the Yakuza thing again. I'm not saying that every promotion is connected to the Yakuza, which is organized crime in Japan. But apparently there have been promotions that are so closely tied and so widely known to be closely tied to the Yakuza that TV stations would actually refuse to air them.
Wow.
I also heard about a promotion called FMW where the owner hanged himself to try to get his family a life insurance payout to cover his debt that he owed to the Yakuza.
Wow.
But it still wasn't even enough, and his family was still in debt for years afterwards. It's pretty dark.
It's a really tough business. I mean, it's razor thin margins, lots of competition. I could see how these promotions get into debt and then take the loan that's offered, and now you're in the Yakuza umbrella, I do have one more controversy.
Okay.
There was something known as the Ghastly Match. So this was in 2015.
There was a Pokemon match?
No.
Oh, sorry. I was hoping it was like Ghastly and Gengar or something facing off. That'd be pretty cool. I'd watch that.
That would be great, actually. But there was a wrestler called Act Yasukawa wrestling in a match against a wrestler called Yoshiko. And Yoshiko beat Act so badly during this match, like closed fist just beating on her, that Act suffered a broken cheekbone and nose and a fractured orbital socket in her right eye.
Wow.
And Act had to retire from wrestling because of her injuries. And in the aftermath of this, the president, the general manager, and the head trainer of the promotion took pay cuts. The referee was fired, and Yoshiko was stripped of her titles and suspended indefinitely. And they started employing ringside doctors. It's hard to know exactly what happened, but some people are speculating that Act kind of hit her a little bit too hard at the start, and that really made Yoshiko mad, and she just snapped and just started beating on her. It's really kind of unclear what happened, but it was just horrific.
Sounds like it. All right, Paul, I think we've pumped everybody up. Everybody wants to go see wrestling now. Let's let them know how to do that, huh?
Okay. I don't know if you've got any good tips. I was kind of overwhelmed by this because I started looking up and there's just like a million events everywhere all over the place. And I was just like, okay, I don't know which one to choose.
I think I got some good tips here.
Okay.
Number one, check out YouTube. Tons of stuff out there. A lot of the big promotions even have their own YouTube accounts, and you can just zero in on whichever one you like and watch all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
If you're in Tokyo and you want to see a match at Korakuen, that really big stadium that does all the biggest Puroresu shows, there are a couple ways to get tickets there. You could visit a kombini and try to get tickets via their little terminal. They got like a little multi-purpose terminal thingy in there. I heard Lawson specifically is a good place to get these types of tickets.
Call back to last episode. See if your hotel can help you book a ticket.
Perhaps. Worth a try. But the kombini is known for being convenient. I mean, may as well just try it there. Sounds pretty convenient to me. Lawson has a foreign customer website that's apparently really easy to use that you can get tickets through. Another option is you could just show up on the day of the match and get tickets at the ticket counter if it's not sold out. I think a lot of these matches have standing room, so they kind of don't sell out.
Okay.
But Paul, like you said, matches don't only happen in Tokyo. You could look for events across the country and just kind of show up and try to get tickets.
Yeah.
If you're interested in a specific promotion and attending one of their live performances, you could check out their website and see if they have a way for you to get tickets directly from them. Another site that I heard a lot of good things about is called buysumotickets.com. And I'm thinking if you want sumo tickets, they can probably also help with that. But I heard a lot of people that had good experiences getting pro wrestling tickets from buysumotickets.com.
Okay. You mentioned YouTube. I did see that a lot of the major promotions stream their stuff, and you can buy a streaming package for $10-20 a month or whatever and live stream all their big events too.
Why not just watch the old free stuff on YouTube, though? That's what I'd say.
Yeah, you're obviously not a sports fan, Jason.
No.
You could watch a Timberwolves game from 3 years ago. Why would you want to watch the one happening tonight?
I mean, unless you're really, really into Japanese wrestling, what's the point of seeing the thing that's happening today?
So you can go tweet about it with everybody else right after it ends.
I feel like the only person doing that is somebody that's really into the industry and whatever.
Who else would be watching it?
People that are just curious about it, you know?
Okay.
Somebody listening to this episode is like, I'm going to go on YouTube and watch my first ever Japanese pro wrestling match. That's who I'm thinking about.
Okay, then they're going to go down the rabbit hole and subscribe to the service.
We'll see. I got to say, Paul, I got to be honest. I don't know what it is exactly about me, but I just don't get it. Like, I don't understand why anyone would want to participate in this industry. I don't understand why it is fun to watch. Like, I have no interest in attending one of these. I got to be honest.
I'm not surprised. It's entertainment. You know? It's fun.
Okay.
I understand why you don't. You're very logic oriented. You know, you're like, well, this isn't real. Why should I mean, that's fine. That's just how you are. You know, I get it. But it's a show. It's just a different type of show. Some people like
some
movies,
kinds of shows.
Some like plays. Some like live music. Some people like pro wrestling.
Maybe I'm just a big wimp and I don't like fighting. I'm not super into like fighting type anime either. he is all into like action fighting stuff, and I'm like, let's just watch a slice of life, like school, high school based anime, you know?
Hey, I guys watch cute girls doing cute things.
Yeah. What's wrong with that? All right, welcome to our new segment about whatever it is we want to talk about that's somehow related to Japan.
You know what's on my mind, Jason?
What?
So you just got a couple REM figurines, right?
I did. Rem from ReZero.
And up on the top row now, with all your Miku, I didn't think you'd add anything to the Mikus, but Rem made it in. You've got the Rem in the cute maid outfit, and as we're like sitting here looking at each other talking, her tummy is just distracting me.
It's a pretty good one, right?
it's a good one.
I want to clarify, she didn't replace any Mikus. All the Mikus are still there. I just had to make room for that one because I think it's just one of my favorites.
It's
the top row is not all Miku, it's just my favorite figurines.
Sure.
And that's a good Rem one, I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
Maybe too good.
You need me to put a blanket over the display case or something?
We'll see. I think I'll survive.
All right. Eyes over here, Paul.
But you'll have to be really entertaining this episode.
Eyes on me. I don't know if I can do it. Oh, wait, what? This is at the end of the episode. You can't act like we haven't done the episode yet, remember?
Well, didn't you say last episode that's how we were going to do this?
Yeah, but I didn't say it in this episode, so now it's just weird.
Okay.
People are going to be confused.
Well, I'm glad you were so interesting, Jason. It wasn't a problem. Probably.
Okay. Paul, do you want another choose your own adventure?
Sure.
This time there are only two paths because you already took the third one last time.
Okay.
So this time you get to choose between a video game review or a book review.
Let's do a book.
Good choice. I was hoping you would go for that one. I recently read a book called Samurai Rising, The Epic Life of Minamoto Yoshitsune by Pamela S. Turner. And it was great. I really enjoyed it. Minamoto Yoshitsune is the younger half-brother, was the younger half-brother of Minamoto no Yoritomo. You know him, right, Paul?
Was he the one that started the Kamakura period?
That's correct. He was the first shogun of the Kamakura period. He's often called the first shogun ever in Japan. That was the first shogunate. And I hadn't heard as much about Yoshitsune, his younger half-brother, but he is an extremely famous samurai in his own right.
Yeah, didn't he help win a lot of those battles that helped create the shogun?
Yes, he did. He's known as just this amazing strategist and military leader. And this book is basically a biography of his life.
So he got rewarded for all that success, right, Jason?
It's a messed up story, man.
Yeah, I don't think it ends well for him, does it?
No, it doesn't. But it's a really interesting story. And, you can see why he became such a heroic figure in Japanese history. And what I really liked about the book is that it's very accessible. Like, you don't need to know a ton about Japanese history to get something out of this book. It uses a lot of plain language. It doesn't get too crazy academic or anything. And honestly, there were certain parts where it felt like it was a little too casual. Like, it's just using kind of modern slang and stuff that took me out of it a little bit.
Okay.
But it's still, I think it was a good presentation of the facts, and it tries to stay as factual as it possibly can. Of course, when you're looking over 1,000 years, or almost 1,000 years back, it's hard to know what's real and what's legend, right?
Yeah.
But I think the author, Pamela S. Turner, did a really good job of using credible sources. And I mean, a huge section of the later part of the book is all like bibliography and just little notes about like, this is why I used this detail from this source instead of this detail from this other source that seemed a little less credible. Just a lot of stuff like that. So if you really want to dig deep into the details, you go all the way through that bibliography stuff and just like fun little tidbits. And, even though we've learned so much about Japanese history through doing the podcast, I still got, I feel like, a better sense of what samurai culture was like at that time. We talk about how samurai are this aristocratic class, but back at that point, before the first shogunate, the samurai weren't that. It was more like there was the court, the imperial court. Those were the aristocrats that were all about poetry and, refinement and all that stuff. The samurai were just warriors. They were just brutes at that time.
Yeah.
But when they took over the country through the shogunate, that's when they started to take on these trappings of, high class culture.
Yeah. When you take over the government, you have to figure out how to run the government.
Yeah.
Although I do think it was kind of a slow transition. You kind of still had that old aristocratic class in Kyoto that ran government in some ways. But especially when we got to the Edo period is when they stripped samurai of all their swords and everything, and they really had to become bureaucrats and businessmen because there were no warriors anymore.
Well, and by the Edo period, that's when they really started to romanticize the samurai's past and like the ideas of honor and loyalty and all that stuff. And especially in this book, you see that like loyalty wasn't a thing.
They were not
at the beginning.
honorable or loyal.
I mean, there are people like switching sides in the middle of a battle, like, oh, these guys are winning. I'm fighting for their side.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a good book. If you're interested in samurai history, I think you should read it.
Okay.
What have you been consuming lately, Paul? Got anything to talk about?
No, I haven't been watching much lately. Just playing games and watching basketball. Although it's the winter now, and I've had this weird thing where a few times now, I'm like suddenly really tired, and I'm like, am I getting sick? And then I go home.
This is what we're talking about,
sleep
Paul?
for 10 hours, and I just wake up feeling amazing.
Is this related to Japan?
No, it's just how I'm doing.
All right. Well, before we go, we got to thank those Shogun level patrons: Georgette and Caitlin Seymour, John W., Kelly Ardong, Kevin Phillips, Pamela Arola, Jack, Brady K., Yasmin, and Kevin Harris. Thank you all so very, very much.
Thank you.
Also, Eric, our single emperor at the moment. You're awesome as well. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
If anyone else wants to support the podcast, you can always check out our Patreon. We got the link in the show notes. For as little as $2 a month, you can get access to all this exclusive content, especially if you're into like folk tales. We got all sorts of folk tale stuff on there.
Yeah.
Read a bunch of, really old tales that I think give a lot of cultural background that's pretty fun.
If you're traveling to Japan soon, we've got some itineraries for sale on the Patreon site as well. Help you plan out some really efficient days in some of the most popular cities in Japan.
You don't need to be a patron to buy those either. Anybody can just pop in there and get an itinerary.
Yep.
Or if you feel like you've gotten a lot of value out of the podcast and you just want to give a one-time donation, you can do that at our website, sightseeingjapanpodcast.com. We have a support us page on there with details about that. Paul, what are we talking about next time?
Our next episode is going to be about some of the best cycling trails in Japan.
Ooh, that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
On one of my trips, I did the
Shimanami Kaido.
That
you won't ever shut up about how it was the best thing you've ever done.
It was.
Understandably so. It does sound amazing.
One of the best experiences of my entire life. And I can't wait to learn about more cycling trails so that I can do more of those and have more of the best experiences of my life.
Well, that should be a lot of fun.
I agree. Well, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.